Today we're in the land of no phone reception. We're about 10 kilometres away from the town of Jarrahdale and we're checking out the remains of another POW camp. The only reason I know this exists is because of the research I did for the Marrinup POW camp. And it's one of the first videos on this channel. I highly recommend checking that one out either before or after this one. The Jarrahdale POW camp isn't even on Google Maps, so hopefully with this video we can direct a few more people towards it. There's a lot of regrowth forest out here, which is quite nice. Like Marrinup, this will be a 2-for-1 deal, so we do have the remains of the Marrinup town site, but also the remains of a mill, which dates back to the late 1800s, so we'll be checking that out as well. This road's obviously in way better condition than the one into Marrinup, so hopefully it continues like this for the next couple of kilometres. So apparently the road we came down was closed, although the sign was facing in the other direction. There was nothing from Jarrahdale Road where we came in. I'm surprised by the amount of people around here. There's like 4 or 5 other cars and there's people with like picnic chairs and all sorts of stuff. Pretty surprising, really. Anyway, we're starting off with the mill stuff and we have a couple of wells. As we can see there, that's a pretty old looking well. I'll see if I can come around the other side and get a better look of it. That looks incredibly deep. Yeah, that's actually a bit freaky. So this is one of 2 wells. That's the main one, and there is another well over here. Do have a couple of wells I plan on visiting for these videos, so hit that subscribe button if you want some more well content. And as we can see, that one is a little less substantial, but I wouldn't want to be stepping on that grating. On this jarrah tree we have what's called a shield marker, which is part of a reference system throughout the entire forest. These were put in the 1920s by foresters to more or less get around. I think it's very interesting. Maybe that's because I am a surveyor, but it's great that they're still here. And I did spot at least one as I was driving in. Also around here we have the remains of the mill. Can't say there is a lot to see at the moment. Like most things in life, it's been replaced with a car park. Regardless, it was called the 39 Timber Mill, or Old 39, and it ran from the 1890s up until 1902. It was called the Old 39 Mill because it was 39 miles by rail to Rockingham, of which we locals call Rocco, if you didn't know. Here we have the 39-mile brook, or creek, something like that. 39-mile brook, apparently, according to my information. We are in winter at the moment, and it's not exactly high flowing, but still flowing nonetheless. Hopefully we don't get rained on. Speaking of weather, it is supposed to be nice and sunny today, but I don't know, we shall see. Anyway, I might seem a little bit off-put as I'm walking and talking because there is quite a few people here, which is mind-boggling. I did not expect that, but just so you know, that's probably why I sound the way I do. I'm just a bit nervous. So unlike my previous videos, I was unable to find any reference photos or historical photos whatsoever. Even on this plaque here, that just says the 39 was similar to the mill pictured here. I guess you get the idea. It would have been quite busy around here. Supposedly it was at the junction of 3 different railway lines, with the closest being a 12-kilometre distance to the town site of Jarrahdale. So we might possibly have some photos here. Again, unsure, but looks like we are on the remains of the railway line at the moment. I'll be honest, the signage around here is a bit crap. I believe we're also on the, probably going to say this wrong, I think it's the Munda Bindi Trail, which is an extremely long trail. It goes for about 1,000 kilometres up and down the Western Australian landscape. So it's probably a pretty long track for a lot of people who aren't from Australia, but yeah, this is how we roll. So I'm not sure if this is anything. There are more substantial ruins around, I promise. But we do have a hole in the ground, which is cool as a hole in the ground can be, and we've got some bricks. So not the most exciting start, I will admit. Okay, so here we are in like a parade area. This here was the original entrance to the site, was a gate at some point. I have seen photos of a bit of wood attached to there, but famous thing about this is all the inscriptions that they've put into it, supposedly from the original prisoners. I'd say a lot of people have probably come and added their own over the years. I try not to film these people having a picnic, but basically this was the parade area where parades would have happened. Alright, not gonna lie, pretty awkward walking around there filming while they're all having a picnic. Here we have what's remains of a grease trap. Apparently there's quite a few of these around, and they did as expected. They trapped grease. So we can see as we walk deeper there are some remains poking up out of the bush. So what I wanted to talk about in that parade area was the internees. So not only were there prisoners of war prisoners here, for a lack of a better term, there were about 60 internees, but these guys lived in two-man tents as opposed to the accommodation afforded to the prisoners, which we'll get into in a second. The internees weren't soldiers. They were basically Italian immigrants, or those with Italian heritage. It's a pretty dark part of the war, especially for local history in the war, but these were considered aliens since they were from Italy, basically. So these poor guys were sent out here to work as well. And like I said, they had to live in two-man tents. Pretty awful conditions from what I can imagine. So what I was just walking on there was the wash house. And I believe this is the remains of the powerhouse. You may remember the powerhouse from the Marron-up video. And like I said there, the concrete formations are quite interesting. Lots of trenches and bits sticking out, lots of geometry basically. I can imagine this would have just housed a big diesel generator. So those people set up there has totally thrown off my order. I haven't even talked about the prisoners yet, so I guess we'll talk about them last. This here is probably the remains of where the commanders were. So for this camp there was an officer and a company sergeant major as his offsider, and the army also employed an interpreter because, like I don't think I've even mentioned yet, because like I said, I'm a bit thrown off, all the prisoners here were Italians. So this is definitely the most substantial ruin of a fireplace, as you can see. And it kind of looks to me like, I don't know, like it's like this has been carved in. It doesn't look like a brick formation. I don't know, I don't even know. I mean, there are bricks and stuff under it, so who's to say? But still, a pretty cool ruin nonetheless. It's been sitting out here in the bush for a very long time. So some of the signage here is in really bad condition. I can just read out kitchen there next to this piece of concrete. Even more excitingly, we have another piece of concrete over here. So I guess I'll start talking about the actual camp itself and the Italian prisoners, which I should have done from the get-go, so thank you for being patient. Basically, this camp was originally built in 1939, and it wasn't originally a POW camp. However, it was transferred into one in 1944, and it could hold up to 200 Italian prisoners. Now, these guys were basically the naughty kids of the POWs, so if you've watched my Marron-up video, you'll know that conditions there were pretty cruisy. You know, there wasn't really, even aside from the fact that they were prisoners, it did seem like they have a pretty good life. This camp was converted to a POW camp because it was for all the types that would escape and cause trouble otherwise. So, unlike Marron-up, there was no farming work. Everything here was forestry based. So they would cut wood in the forests, and there would be road construction projects, land clearing projects, stuff like that. There really isn't too much to see. I was just about to say they worked 8-hour days and they were supervised by local foresters. Like I said, these were the bad boys of the POWs, so I think life here was a bit more strict than it was at Marron-up. And very structured. It ended up getting a bit of a reputation from some of the other POWs, which I'm sure the local authorities, the rumours of which the local authorities didn't stop from spreading because, they wanted people to be afraid. So the camp was called W20, or Prisoner of War Control Hostel W20. The prisoner dorms were made out of wood and they were mounted on stumps. But there are no remains of that today, and to be honest, there isn't really remains of anything else. So as you can imagine, there was no fence. I think the Australian bush is enough of a barricade, but there was a wire that went around it. And if you crossed that wire, it was considered an escape. So ironically, I think the people here that misbehaved were sent back to Marrinup because there was the little detention section of that camp. But regardless, if you came out here, you probably weren't going back there unless you're being transferred or going into the naughty room. Alright, so apologies for how this video was going. I'm not very happy about it. There's not much to see, and all the people were staring at me as I was trying to show you the gate. And they'll probably stare at me even more when I shoot the B-roll. We did, however, spot some ruins out in the bush. Is it anything interesting? Is it just a pipe that goes to nowhere? Oh, it might go somewhere. I don't know. It's hard to say. Looks like we have remains of drainage, which is basically all that we do find the remains of. There were a few more grease traps I noticed, but I didn't bother filming them. I think once you've seen one grease trap, you've seen them all. Annika has been filming some fantastic fungus.
You've almost stepped on the other one.
Oh no. Sorry, little guy. Not sure if you guys have been watching the news recently, but you're definitely not supposed to eat these because you may die. Okay, well, hell of a place to have a picnic. Ironically, they all seem to be German. So, not really sure if that's deliberate on their part or not, since it was full of Italian POWs. Regardless, I was not expecting them to be here, but producer Annika behind the camera here is telling me that I'm apologizing too much, so I'll stop doing that. So, let's do the outro, I guess. I'm in the brook at the moment, nice and low, far away from any other people, so hopefully I can just talk a little bit more freely. This place was put on the municipal inventory in 2000, which is basically like a local government. It's not a heritage listing per se, but it means in the eyes of the local government, it is a site of significance. But luckily, it actually was heritage listed in 2018. So like the other places we've been to in these videos, it is a protected site. And I was gonna say in my notes that it's not really known about, but evidently it is, since there's a whole group of people there having a nice picnic. So I would like to find more POW remains, but I'm honestly not sure if there are any out there. I didn't know this place existed until I did research for Marrinup, so I will do some more and we'll see if we can find any more sites to visit. But as far as I know, these may be the only two places to visit in WA, but I will be sure to keep you updated. And if you would like to be updated, I would appreciate hitting that subscribe button and also liking the video. This is the bit where I grovel at the end. Basically, the reason I'm asking is because of the YouTube algorithm. So if YouTube sees people liking and subscribing to the video, and obviously don't do that if you hated the video, that's fine. But it does help a lot. It puts eyes on the video, YouTube promote it, all that sort of stuff. So I would appreciate it if you did enjoy the video. And I will apologize one last time. This video has been all over the place and honestly, there isn't actually that much to see anyway. But we had to document it, didn't we? We wouldn't know until we came. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Hey, while we've been in Jarrahdale, we've been doing a bit of a scouting mission and I think the next video is going to be awesome. Here's a couple of photos I took with my phone. There's Annika. She's ready for a beer. So am I. Like I said, see you in the next video.